Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cantina Conversations. I am one of your hosts, Will Beeman, joined as always by my two enthusiastic friends of the North. Starting off with the ever so lovely, the king of hype, DJ Gillard. DJ, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm like the least hype person you could possibly imagine. But thanks, I guess. I don't know.
That's why it fits so well.
I guess.
How are you today, DJ?
I'm doing well for the most part. The most upsetting part was when you told me my sweater ruined our background here, but
now he's cosplaying as Rey from the end of Rise of Skywalker.
Ah, that's right.
Right. I've made my full transition. I started with the black one, and then I started with the red sweater, and then now I'm on to the white sweater. I've made my full arc. I'm Ben Solo when you think about it.
Well, I think for the rest of the episode.
I like how we also for this podcast.
Go ahead.
Sorry. No, I hate how for this podcast, this is bothering me for weeks now. When people do video shows on YouTube, they always like make a point to like make it about the video all of a sudden, and I hate that we've done that completely by accident. Like we have not been doing these bits intentionally. It just comes up, like, it just happens, and
it's because it's
very annoying.
We're just that naturally skilled.
The starting of recording video coincides with the starting of us filming with video, so now we're actually looking at each other, so now we can comment on what everyone's wearing.
Before, I mean, we could just wear whatever, but now you're in your Rey Skywalker cosplay, so for the rest of the episode I'm going to refer to you as DJ Skywalker.
Oh, great, thanks.
What I always call him.
And rounding out the panel, rounding out the panel, we have the king of Kermit, Jackson Wells. Jackson, how are you doing today?
Doing well. I went with some lemonade vitamin water this evening, and as opposed to tea. I had a tea earlier, and I left the bag in for too long, and it was way too bitter.
I hate a bitter tea.
You don't want that.
No. Nobody wants a bitter cup of tea, and nobody wants to delay any further about chapter 12.
I would actually like to delay further. I have a surprise.
That's good. What's your surprise?
I have a surprise. I wanted to surprise you guys
with exciting.
A little gift. It's not actually gift? It's a gift for me, but it's a gift for you to get to see it. I made a purchase. Star Wars related.
A Star Wars purchase. What do we got?
And here it is. Oh, it's gonna be reversed on the video.
No, it looks good.
No, it's good. The Empire Strikes Back, certain point of view. Perfect.
That's a thick book.
That is.
I know it's very dummy thick, if I do say so myself.
There's 3 C's in that thing.
Yeah, I haven't read anything of it yet. It's definitely gonna be one of those ones that I'm like, since it's like 40 stories, I'm gonna read over the course of like a year and just like.
Should just do one a day.
Yeah, just open it up and see what's happening.
Like your daily bread.
Just like Jesus went into the desert for 40 days and 40 nights, DJ Skywalker is going to read 40 short stories in 40 days.
Exactly. So it's a very, very nice book, the look of it. It looks very nice.
Yeah, that hardcover actually in person looks really good.
Yeah, so.
Now you can learn about Will Hood.
Yeah, exactly. I can learn all about that ice cream making boy.
You're going to be the expert.
Yeah.
Wow, what a great surprise, DJ. The journey into novels for you.
It's been a good time.
I'm like a proud father.
It's been a good time. It's my first Star Wars book that I've owned, like a real one.
Wow. Oh yeah, because you've been doing the audiobooks.
I just do audiobooks usually, but for this one I was like, this is special. This is special.
Yeah, so. You need to have the hard copy for it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm jealous. I can tell Jackson's jealous just by his face. So before we get to talking about chapter 12 the siege, there's a few little tidbits that I want to sprinkle in here, and that's starting off with just like how you never want to see Jackson drinking bitter tea, you don't want to see the news story that came out over the week from renowned sci-fi author Alan Dean Foster. Recently has come out saying that since the purchase of Lucasfilm by Disney has not been giving him his proper royalties on Splinter of a Mind's Eye, which, as you know, we did an episode about, and I'm a huge fan of, which is like the first extended universe novel. They're not giving him his royalties on the Star Wars A New Hope novelization. That he didn't say anything in the article I read about the Force Awakens novelization. I'm assuming he's getting it from that because that came out after post-purchase. But then he said once Disney bought Fox, they stopped giving him his royalties for his Alien, Aliens, and Alien 3 novelizations.
Jeez.
Which is super weird. And from the article that I read, I can't remember what website it was off of now. It was like a reliable trade though, but like Disney's statement back was just saying that when they purchased it, they were just purchasing the properties, but they weren't purchasing any of the prior like obligations, which I know nothing about law, so I can't really say that that's not how that works or that is how that works.
Yeah.
But hopefully they're able to get
common
this
is.
right. Hopefully they're
Like-
they're able to get this situation taken care of soon, and we can get both parties back happy together. But I mean, I can
Yeah.
imagine that Splinter of a Mind's Eye and the New Hope novelization are probably selling so few that it's very possible Disney didn't even notice that they weren't.
Okay,
giving
I
out
wanted
royalties.
when I bought the Splinter of the Mind's Eye graphic novel adaptation, I wanted some of that money to go back to Alan Dean Foster. So I'm very upset about this news.
I'm sure the 10-cent check that he would have gotten for it.
I know. I
would have
really
been-
wanted to give him that 10 cents. So
But I mean, I do side with them though. I mean,
Yeah.
his money is his money, no matter how small or large it is. So
yeah, especially when
and they-
this is something Disney could easily do. Like I
Right.
don't think
well, that's
the
what I'm
Splinter of the
saying. Maybe
Mind's
they
Eye
maybe it's just something
profits.
that they missed.
Yeah,
'cause it's
they
just like
also
six.
honestly.
the part I read too was that like he was saying that like, hey, I would like this money because I have like my wife and I have had a lot of like medical like issues that they have to pay for, and I was like, oh well, this like obviously he deserves his money regardless, but I'm like, oh, this is even like worse.
Yeah. I am
So what we
curious
should
though, like
do-
how common this is in the industry with like
Yeah.
acquisitions like this, because I've never heard of like these stories before, but I wonder if this is like something that happens all the time, which doesn't make it good. Like I think they still should pay I think they should pay the royalties, but
Right.
I wonder if this is very common practice for these big companies.
Yeah. So what everyone should do is go out and buy copies of Splinter of a Mind's Eye and read it because it's awesome. And maybe Disney will be like, "Oh man, look at all these purchases we're getting. Oh no, we've been forgetting to pay all this," and maybe that'll get it situated.
Maybe,
and
yeah.
we can say Cantina Conversation saved the day. Moving on to the next other piece of news was the revelation that Janina Gavankar was on the set and worked on the last week's episode of The Mandalorian. She controlled the
puppet, right?
nostrils of
Yeah.
the Mon Calamari. That
That was
wore
a good Mon
lovely sweater.
Calamari too.
It is. I put the sweater he's wearing on my Christmas list to my family.
Nice.
But yeah, so I guess like the article where she revealed that was her controlling the nostrils is she showed up on set, and of course I don't think this will surprise either of you, but like Dave Filoni recognized her and was like, Iden Verso's not in this episode, and she was like, "Oh, I'm just here to control the nostrils of this puppet." And so I was like, of course Dave would like notice her and be like, "Wait a minute, your character's not
Yeah.
supposed to
That's
be
not
in this."
canon.
Yeah.
Dave's one of those guys.
There was
But-
a quote going around. You're probably getting to it, Will.
Well, if I'm not, I'm just saying that does leave the possibility Dave knows who she is, and she would fit
Yeah.
in the timeline. She's visited the set now.
There was a quote from her where she basically said, I don't know if it was in this article or something else, where she was just like, she didn't say I have nothing to announce, but I did drop by and be like, hey, I should be in this show. You know what I mean? Like she like got all actresses are gonna say that to
Mhm.
like the showrunners, be like, hey, can I be in this?
But I
don't
mean,
know.
she's
I don't
been on
think-
set now. She sees
Yeah,
how the
yeah,
volume
she's
works.
been on set.
and-
Like it would make a lot of sense considering in this episode we got even more New Republic stuff. The
Mhm.
fact it would make sense down the line, maybe a season 3 type thing where she would show up at some point. So
Right.
that would be cool. Cool
And
little
then,
crossover that could be.
the Lego Holiday Special that's out on Disney Plus now. We dropped a whole episode about it last Friday as a bonus. So if you haven't listened to that yet, go and check that out. And then the last tidbit before we get into it is I'm going to read this tidbit and then I'm going to make a wildly outlandish take. The male Mandalorian that appeared in last week's episode, his name was Axe Woves. He was the one
That's a
that
good
was
name.
opposite of
Sasha
Sasha
Banks.
Banks.
Costco Reeves or whatever her character's
Right.
name is. Turns out, from an interview Filoni and Favreau did, that character was named by Lucas himself when he was visiting the set,
Ah.
which makes
Now,
me
okay,
think
hit me with this.
because okay, so they're letting Lucas name characters. They've only
Right.
announced 7 directors for this season. That leaves
Yeah,
one
I
episode
know,
unaccounted
yeah.
for.
Yeah.
George Lucas is going to direct an episode. He's gotta. How crazy would that be if they don't reveal it, though,
That would
until
be
the episode's
nuts.
live and then the credits come up and it just says directed by George Lucas?
That
If they're gonna
would
do
be-
it, it would be episode 6, right? The
That's,
second Ahsoka episode.
I mean, that's the one that episode 6, episode 8 are the 2 that we don't really know, because like we're assuming
Yeah.
Dave is directing the episode he wrote, which is episode 5.
Amayuka wrote episode
And then
7.
he wrote 7. So 6 and 8 are left to grabs, and Robert Rodriguez
And I don't think he's
has
getting the
one of
finale.
those.
Yeah.
But what if he did get the finale, though?
It'd be crazy. That'd be insane.
But I mean, it's very
I don't think
possible
so.
because like Filoni, Chow, and Rick both had 2 episodes apiece last season, so it's very possible one of the 7 directors that have done an episode this season are just doing another one.
Yeah, I guarantee that. I just don't think it's George doing the
But
finale.
how cool would that be, though, if
would
it
be
was
cool.
George Lucas?
I think if anything, 6 actually would make a little bit of sense, just in the sense if
'Cause it would
Ahsoka's
follow
in the
Dave
second
and-
episode, if it would follow Dave, and
Yeah.
like Lucas obviously was a part of the whole start of Clone Wars, so
Right.
that would make some kind of sense. But I don't know.
See, that's
I'm
just
doubting
me.
you will.
That's just me being a fanboy, though. That's just something I would love. I just
It would be
I
cool.
do
Go,
think
if
it's
watch,
very
go watch
interesting that.
THX.
yeah. Maybe I will, since I'm still working through all that stuff. But I just thought it was cool that he named that character, so he's still leaving his mark on the Star Wars franchise. So that gets everything out of the way as far as news and tidbits. So let's dive into Chapter 12, The Siege, directed by Carl Weathers, written by Jon Favreau. Cinematography was once again done by Matthew Jensen. As you remember from our episode last week, I was going into this episode just expecting it to be something fun, a fun filler episode that would just tide me over till next week, where we know the big things are going to be coming. But I could not be more happy to be wrong, and things are still moving 4 chapters in big ways. So, some big implications revealed in this episode that we're going to get to. So let's just start right off into it, where we have this nice scene where Mando and
This is so
the
good. This is
child
so
are
good.
trying to do some repairs on their ship just so they can survive. And he's like, take the red wire and then take the blue wire and put the red wire where the blue wire was and the blue wire where the red wire was. And the child's just like in that tunnel, and he's just like looking at him holding the wires, and he's like, no, put that where the blue one was. And he's like, no, don't make them touch. And then like he touches the wires or whatever and gets like electrocuted. He's just like,
Yeah.
are you all right?
It's
That was some
foreshadowing
good-
Force lightning.
Yeah,
So-
that was some good humor.
Yeah.
Um,
And then Mando takes off his helmet a little bit here.
yeah,
Yeah.
we finally get DJ's wish answered. Is how has he eaten? Well, he just
What are the
tips that
next
up a little
episode?
bit and
Yeah.
he
does the
pours it
thing.
on in. But
Getting a little more comfortable with that.
yeah, I think we're leading to some helmet off action.
Oh yeah.
I thought he was gonna take it off when he started reaching for it, and I was like, oh, here we go. But I'll take a little
Pedro.
tip back.
It was
Yeah.
funny. I was looking at the chin and I was like, that's Pedro, right? And I was like, I don't know what his chin looks like really.
Yeah, look for that goatee that he's got.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he seems to be getting a little bit more lenient with the helmet. Now we know that he's eating.
Good.
So
that he
he's
eats.
properly nourished. So he's like, hey, why don't we go visit some old friends and repair this ship? And he's like, how about we go to Navarro? And it cuts to the old Mando hideout, and there's some of those aliens. I can't remember what their species is off the top of my head. It's the same species as the guy from A New Hope that gets his arm cut off. Like with the things on the face or whatever, but like they're like raiding the old standout, and then the worst character of the series shows up and clears all of them out. Cara Dune. Thank you everybody who submitted on Twitter their video of booing Cara Dune today, because we're recording this again as the episode came out. So there was about 4 or 5 people that did it, so that's pretty good participation for the first try.
This is your reminder during your rewatch.
Yeah, during your rewatch to make sure you boo when she shows up on screen. And they call her the Marshal, so she's like the Marshal of Navarro now. It just stinks that like I don't like her as a character has been completely ruined for me, because this is actually a really cool action scene.
Yeah.
But so they cut back to the city, and Mando's landed. He goes up to greet Cara and Grief Karga, and they do like a little bro shake, which is kind of like reminiscent of him and Schwarzenegger from Predator. But
yeah, I guess so.
So like there's that little tie there that, you know, the whole Carl Weathers touch, and he's like, hey, I need to get this ship fixed, and they were like, well, those repairs are going to take a minute, so maybe you should help us out. And then like at this point in the episode though, when this was happening, I was like, here we go, here's the side quest. Is he's just gonna
weird bit.
Yeah, they're just gonna go on this adventure, and that's gonna be it, and then they'll go on their way. And like they kind of show how the town's improved.
I'm surprised you guys thought. Sorry.
No, go.
I'm
for
just
it,
surprised
BJ.
that you guys thought that we were gonna have such a like filler episode. I thought for sure when it was like we're going back to Navarro, it's like okay, we're gonna get into the First Order here because they're still gonna be on this planet. Like I thought, I was surprised you guys thought it was gonna be filler.
Well, excuse me.
But
I mean, I just wrote it off just because it was Carl Weathers and they were going back to Navarro. Because like to me,
that's what you learn.
It seems like they were done. Yeah, he showed me. I'll never disrespect Carl Weathers again. I hope he accepts
no
my
disrespect.
personal.
You're Carl Weathers, the
apologies.
actor.
Yeah. But yeah, so like they show like how the city's changed since season 1. Like there's a memorial to IG-11.
I saw that. That's awesome.
I didn't see that. Oh, I gotta go back.
Yeah, you'll have to go back and watch. Like right when they're entering into the school, there's like this memorial in the background of IG-11. And
Yeah,
it's
like
awesome.
in the center.
Yeah.
It's like in the center of all the streets, and I'm just like, that's exactly where he like whipped around in that speeder at the end of season 1. Like that's 100% just right there. It's awesome.
And then, so like apparently they view him as a war hero, but like that
He's a
bar
god.
or that cantina that they were in where that shootout happened with Moff Gideon in the season finale, they've retrofit into a school. And
I noticed that.
I thought it was funny how they're just like, we'll just leave the child here. He can learn for the day so like it's another good job like in last week where they find a way of getting him out of the way so he doesn't hold the larger story and set pieces back. Kind of like you touched on.
It was also a terrible
Jackson.
idea though.
To what? Leave him at school?
Yeah, as soon as they did this, I was like, well, this is gonna go terrible.
There's gonna be some hijinks going up here.
Yeah,
There
and
were.
I did notice the little nod to Solo in this episode is the protocol droid that was instructing them was mentioning the maelstrom outside Kessel, and they were like measuring how many distances between the maelstrom and the end of Kessel and stuff, and I was like, oh, that's something that we saw happen
Space math
during Solo, so that's cool. But yeah, so like they're just like, we're gonna leave him here, and then they take off, and then there's this kid eating these like turquoise cookies.
They look like what are those British little things? I can't remember.
I thought it was a crown.
I thought they looked like turquoise Thin Mints from the Girl Scout cookies is what they look like to me.
They're blue milk cookies.
Yeah,
that's what they are.
Yeah. But
I guess that would make sense.
Yeah.
Sebastian wants them, obviously. So like this kid's just like eating.
Can I
them.
has cookie? No more chicken nugget.
Yeah. And he was like, no, you can't. So Sebastian uses the Force to pull the cookies to him.
First use of the Force this season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he just like looks at the kid in the eye and just starts eating the cookie and like giggles.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've got the cookie now.
I'm glad this wasn't a thing. 'Cause when the scene first started, I was like, is he going to use the Force? So the kids can get up and be like, oh, we got something going on here.
You think he would have like
Yeah,
more shocking reaction to seeing his cookies fly
I'm glad it
across
was
the
just
desk.
comical.
Yeah.
When we get into the Force stuff of this show, where it can't be in a school with this kid wanting turquoise blue milk cookies, like that's too. I know the scale of the show has been a bit lower, but that's a bit low for me, honestly.
Right.
So
Right. So the mission Mando is on is to raid this old Imperial base that's on like the outskirts of Navarro. And basically they're like, well, why should we do this? And like and they go into like the building to meet about it, and the Mithril from episode 1 is there. He's like back. And at first I was like, what is he doing? But then like it made sense because like Mando brought him to Grief. Like that was his bounty puck. So it would make sense how he would have gotten thawed and then started working for Grief Karga.
honestly, I was like, wait, this guy isn't dead? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I honestly didn't notice.
Yeah, weird character to bring back out of any of them, but
I liked it. It was funny.
Yeah.
He was
That's
good,
like-
but
he's much
They-
better than Amy Sedaris.
They know this too.
I don't know if I go that far.
They know this too because they show in like the previously on. They show him. I'm like, why are they showing us the first episode previously on? I was like,
Yeah.
oh, because they bring back this guy.
Yep. Yeah, so like he's there and he like owes like 300 years worth of debt to Grief Karga, and they're like talking about this old Imperial base, and they're like, if we can take this Imperial base out and just clean out who's left there, we can blow it up. That'll take care of the Imperials on this planet. It can be a free planet, and we can be a central trading hub. And I had to laugh just because of like the lunatic stuff that Carano's been like tweeting and putting on Instagram. As Cara Dune has that line where she was like, the planet would finally be free. I was like, her character probably loves the idea of being finally free.
No more big government oppression.
Yeah, no more big government, no masks here. And but like that line just made me really laugh for some reason. So they like get into a super speeder and they take off across like the plains to get to this base or whatever, and they're at this door to get in, and Grief Karga and the Mithril have like this really cheesy back and forth with each other this whole time, where he's like, hey, can you help me out? And he's like, oh, I don't want to help out. And then he's like, well, how about I take 30 years off your sentence? And he's like, oh, well, maybe I'll help a little bit. Can we move quick? And so like while they're bantering back and forth, Mando jetpacks up to the upper deck, and then like shortly after that, there's like a stormtrooper that falls and like lands on the ground, and it sets the door to open because apparently I'm assuming they're like censored to pick up stormtroopers and stuff. So they go inside that way, and they meet up with the Mandalorian, and they're like running through trying to find the reactor core. They're taking out Imperials left and right, and like they find the
Just
lava
doing a
pit.
good old raid.
Yeah, just trying to pull off a good old invade this base and blow it up and leave. You know,
We all
some
play video games.
yeah, some classic
Yeah.
Star Wars. And then so they like find the reactor core or whatever, and they set it to blow. So they start taking off and running. They're taking out more Imperials as they go. There's a funny shot here that's already become famous on the internet, where it's Mando, Grief, and Cara Dune lined up in this doorway, and a crew member in the background.
I've
Just-
seen it. Yeah.
Just chilling. And I saw the picture earlier this morning, but when I rewatched the episode before we recorded, you can totally see this dude just awkwardly standing
with
there.
his cargo shorts.
That poor production assistant that thought he was out of the way and actually wasn't. I don't know if maybe they'll pull a Game of Thrones and re-edit
The
that
Starbucks cup.
shot. Yeah, with the Starbucks
it's crazy
shot.
they missed
but,
it. It's insane.
I mean, it's kind of crazy, but then also they did all the post-production for this season at home. So, I mean, it kind of would make I give them a little bit of leeway for missing it.
Yeah.
Also, stuff like this happens a
Yeah.
lot, like way more than
Yeah.
you think. It's just like examples like this and that Starbucks cup from Game of Thrones last year that like they blow up and they make it seem like these are like 1 in a million things. There's a moment in the original Star Wars where there's a shot in the Millennium Falcon where Han Solo's it's a close up on Han Solo, and you can see over his shoulder somebody coming through or going out of the cockpit doorway, and then a few shots later, Obi-Wan starts leaving as well, and it was like they re-edited how they filmed it, so like that's still Obi-Wan leaving the cockpit just on a shot way later than it was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So like stuff like that does happen. But like so like they find this new panel, whatever, and this is where we got like the big jaw drop moment of the episode. At least to me, Jackson seemed a little bit lukewarm. He can talk about it, but this is when we see like the 3 vats of some kind of a clone. It has to be Snoke clones though. Like it has to be what they are starting to make the strand cast that becomes Snoke for 2 reasons. Is one is that screenshot that I had sent you, I took myself. And then like you can also find pictures online, but like the scarring in the head and stuff, it's too coincidental to not be what becomes Snoke. And Snoke's music plays when they show those tanks. And that's a very un-Ludwig score sound. So like for him to weave that in, it stood out even more. So like DJ, what did you think of this moment? Because I know you said that you were itching to talk about this part.
I don't know about that. I just
you're excited to talk about this, TJ.
I'm excited to talk about this. Okay, I'm
the king of hype.
At first I was hyped, and then I thought about the time after I think episode 3 of this show when we first got a look at the Camino guy. I was just like, what if this is Snoke? I said that back in the day. I want to find the clip because I just want to see it. But after I started thinking about it, I was like, I don't know if I really like this direction, just because I think it's just really tricky territory to begin with, and to like try to address some of the stuff that was like left very open by Rise of Skywalker and things like that. And they're not going to a retcon, because like the idea that Palpatine made Snoke, that's like the direct quote he has, right? And it's like kind of iffy, like if they're experimenting, like what happens there? How does is Palpatine just taking credit, like what's going on there? It's not a rewrite as much of it's like an adding on that kind of makes things feel a bit weird, which happens all the time in Star Wars. But I also I don't know if I find if his character will have the same weight in The Last Jedi and Force Awakens, if we just know he was like this weird experiment that they did to make their own new emperor, basically, which is like, if they do it well, it could be a cool concept, but we're gonna have to see how it goes and how they actually end up doing it. It's cool though, for sure.
Yeah, that was my similar question too, is like, how does Moff Gideon make Snoke, and then Snoke becomes the leader of the First Order? Obviously, these are questions that they may answer in the series, but to me, I'm like, this is weird, and kind of not confusing, because I'm like, I get it, I'm not stupid. Don't be mean to me, people online. But yeah, I also like, I had to be told it was Snoke. So to me, the hype was a little, I was like, oh, is this what I think this is? Is this Snoke? Is this Palpatine?
At first I doubted, just because it's so crazy. But then like you the scar, and then like you look online and just like the music's there. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is it.
Yeah, I'm curious. I feel like Snoke being created by the remnants of the Empire is like kind of not as interesting as yeah, it's just like, oh, he was made by Moff Gideon. Like, well, why didn't Moff Gideon just become the Emperor if he's so cool?
That's the direction that I find the most interesting, because to me it's like it is the Empire at its peak of its cult-ish like tendencies here after Return of the Jedi, and it's like them seeing the Emperor as like a necessary thing. They need fascism. Like they need that kind of government. They need to have this kind of like, they need to keep the balance. They need to restore the previous order that they had, and this is their idea, that they're going to make their own emperor. They're going to make their own, instead of seizing control, instead of like trying to change it and make it their own. They're so committed to the ideals that they had that this is the only thing they can think to do is to bring him back in some way, which is
Interesting.
eventually what happens. That's kind of my take on it.
That
The
is
direction
interesting.
I want.
I do like that.
That's the direction I want them to take with this. I don't. It's going to be so tricky with how much weight I think that character has in The Last Jedi, and how much I don't think this was ever the intended direction for that character, if they even had a one at all. Like
Not
it kind of gets
originally. I
so
don't think it
messy.
was.
So I don't think it
Well,
was like JJ's initial interpretation. I don't think it was Ryan Johnson's initial interpretation. Like whatever one you want to choose, I don't even think this is it. I don't think it's either person's desire. So I don't know how this all melts down. But I
well,
do
I
think
want
there's
you
interesting directions
to explain to me why this is cool and why I should be why my socks should be off.
Well, okay, so I guess it's kind of going to be a long-winded answer because, like, kind of going off of like both of your responses. Another friend of mine was DMing me after the episode went live, and he was like, if that's Snoke, he was like, that means this show is going to start explaining and reinforcing one of the things I liked the least about The Rise of Skywalker, which was the Palpatine clone, the Rey Palpatine stuff, and all of that stuff. And I was
Which
like,
to
well,
me,
you kind
just have
of
to accept it.
right. And I was like, well, you kind of got to realize, like, with this show and any other show they kind of make forward in this time period, they kind of have to do what Clone Wars did to the prequels, where they're going to have to expand and make the bad parts of the sequel trilogy feel good.
Exactly.
Because,
That's my
like,
take too.
all of the bad parts of the prequels don't feel that bad anymore because there's 7 episodes of awesome Clone Wars show that fills all of those gaps in, expands things further, adds some weight to them on their own. And like the prequels feel just like such a different entity now to watch post Clone Wars than when, like, before I had started that show, to be honest. So I think they're gonna have to do, I mean, like, they're like in scramble mode, gotta flesh all this out. I think it was gonna happen regardless of how the new trilogy went. They're gonna fill in gaps, expand on things, and further that lore, because I also think people go into, like, I think Lucasfilm was also going into the mind here where they know that there's going to be Rebels and Clone Wars fans watching this series, so they have to so they continuing expanding that lore and filling things in. And now why this would, now another example of why this would be a rock your socks off moment is because I'm going to say DJ's favorite novel title again. In the Aftermath book, there is mentions in that book about Sidious having cloning labs throughout the galaxy. And like, this is an actual example now of a cloning lab that we see in person. Like, people speculated for a long time that we were going to see one show up in the new the sequel trilogy, and they never did. I mean, they had a perfect opportunity to have it show up in 9, but it kind of didn't. Exegol is like its own thing now in the canon that they're expanding on enough. But seeing like this cloning lab that has been mentioned before in person was cool, and it uses the Doctor in that hologram. Talking like to Gideon about how they need more blood because they're out of the blood samples that they used from the child, and they don't have anyone else that has as high of an M count, which obviously means midichlorian that they
just
still
don't
want to use
anymore.
So funny.
They have not gone back and used midichlorians and anything that I can think of since like the prequel trilogy, except for like that Star Wars textbook. Like, it mentions midichlorians in there, but like they don't mention it in Rebels. They don't mention it in the later seasons of Clone Wars. They don't mention it in any of the novels I've read so far. I think they just know people hated that idea, so they're trying to keep it canon, but not find out a new way to do it. But yeah, so like the reason why, like, it has to be Snoke, if anything, because like Favreau said last year before season 1 aired, like, at some point in this show, they're going to show how the First Order formed. And if Snoke ended up being this Strandcast clone that was used for Palpatine to vessel his body into, they got to show their attempts of making Snoke happen, and then like the failed cloning attempts as well. That is what became unfortunately Rey's father, and stuff like that. So like I don't like those moments of the rise of Skywalker. I've said that several times. I said that on our episode about it. I still don't really like that stuff. I've just accepted it by now. So like this is a good way of them being able to flesh out that story and make me actually like it, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
I
I
don't know
think
if there's any universe that I like it, but I think this is
Right.
going in the right direction for me. This is going
And
to make it better.
and also like coinciding with Aftermath again, and not even Aftermath, but like I think there's a Squadrons reference in it and Battlefront 2, but like Operation Cinder is happening at the same time these Imperial remnants are still trying to do like what Gideon is trying to do. Like Gideon is acting as the Empire's not dead. We're carrying on as normal, and that's fine. But like Ray Sloan, I can't think of the other admiral that's in Aftermath. I'm gonna reread those books soon because I'm tired of them getting brought back into relevancy, and I can't remember character names. But like, there's a whole bunch of Imperial generals that are like high ranking post Palpatine that are in the unknown regions right now, planning the second phase of what the Empire becomes, which I'm going to assume now, just based off of where this seems to be leading, is Operation Cinder is what the First Order bleeds out of. Um, but like, and it's funny though, because like next week we're getting Ahsoka. And the last time we saw Ahsoka, she was on her way to the unknown regions to find Ezra. And if her appearance is rumored to be just the setup for her own show or whatever, her own show that she could be getting, whether animated or live action, could be her going to the unknown regions to find Ezra, finding these remnants of the Imperials, defeating them, and then that's how they spin out into the First Order. Like they could totally go that direction with it, and it still would all fit in line and stuff like that. But I I think it was just so jobbing to me just because like one, we saw the cloning lab in person, and two, it's clearly Snoke in those tanks.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Vil Stostak or Todd Vaziri or any of the Lucasfilm employees that I follow on Twitter comment anything about it yet, so I have no confirmation that it is actually Snoke. It's just that head scar and that music drop. There's just no way it's not.
Yeah. Or at least it's like the one in the tank is obviously not. We're talking. It's not Snoke.
Well, no, they're
like,
not like Snoke,
like
but like
these are like
they're
the
like alpha
fakes.
builds of what they're leading to Snoke being.
Yeah, we're just heading in that direction, really.
Yeah.
I think
Excellent.
where kind of my, I guess, trepidation comes from is just thinking of kind of the two major the two biggest post Return of the Jedi stories right now, in between 6 and 7, are I think still is Battlefront 2, that campaign, and in some ways Squadrons. I haven't played Squadrons. Battlefront 2, I feel like they just like kind of mishandle the idea of like how the Empire changes into like what eventually becomes First Order so much that I'm like, I hope they do it a little differently and explain it. And I think what DJ and Will, you've both said, has been kind of like interesting and leads me to believe they might lead it into a little more interesting direction. Just because like them being like, we're bad, and then some of them being like, oh, we're the baddies, and some of them being like, I love this, I just want to kill people. I'm like, there's got to be something a little more interesting going on there. And just the idea of it being kind of backdoored through Mando in a way that like doesn't really connect, at least so far, seems like I want to see it more of like an A plot as opposed to a B plot. And obviously the show's not over yet, and there's theoretically hundreds of episodes possibly that could go on to explain this more. But as of right now, I'm like, oh, we're kind of doing a different thing, and I feel like throwing this in as a detour maybe doesn't give it the time that it's due.
Yeah, I can see that. It's hard for me to see it not becoming the A plot though. And we like it will never like this never be a Empire show, but I think it eventually is the A part of this show. As far as like what Mando is trying to do, he's not gonna like be trying to stop them becoming the First Order, but over his like battles with them trying to get the child is still like the main goal of this show. When you get right down to it, the main thing we're trying to do here is protect this child, deliver it to the Jedi. So presumably they're going to get him back. I think if Snoke happens, like they probably need him again for the research. I think the Camino cloning dude said as much, did he not? Like he said something like
he was like, they
need him
can't
back.
carry on without
Yeah.
more blood from the child, which is like the one dumb thing that it looks leading towards that I'm not gonna
That
like.
he's gonna get-
I
he's gonna
hate that
get
the
captured.
child is going to be a part of Snoke being created.
Yeah, that's also like one of the very weird things that's going on here.
Yeah.
Which is like, I hope they downplay it. I hope it's more like I hope the eventual direction is like, these are some weird experiments that we did that failed, but we got the knowledge to figure it out on our own. You know, like
Right.
I hope it's not just like Baby Yoda's technically his kid or clone is Snoke. Like that would be weird. That would be, we're heading to a big boss Metal Gear situation here. I'm not into it. So
yeah, I think what I'm maybe more interested in is, hey, it's Mando and the child, and they're fighting this Moff Gideon dude, and like, yeah, maybe it's got broader implications for the Star Wars world, what's going on, but it's not like this is gonna change the world forever. We've got to fight to save the universe. I kind of like that it. At this point, like Mando's none the wiser to what's going on, and I kind of like it that way a little bit, where it's like, oh, we're just kind of going around, and man, if things go bad, this could really go bad. But it's kind of like Rebels, where I like where Rebels ends, where really the big bad guy of Rebels is the blue guy. Wait, where is
Thrawn?
Thrawn,
Jeez,
yes,
man.
I'm so sorry. It's Thrawn. It's not like it is the Emperor, but it's not. And they're kind of able to kind of set the stakes appropriately. We're like, yeah, there's some big stuff, crazy stuff going on here, but like in the end, it's about Thrawn and Ezra, and ultimately, then it's also about Lothal, which is kind of like a small place. And I kind of like that framing of kind of stakes.
I mean, I still feel that those are the stakes at hand here.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
Just looking broadly into the future.
I don't think it's gonna get any more like broad than what we're at. Like I think this is like the biggest Star Wars universe that it's gonna get, as where he's like interacting with Imperials. Some things are getting sprinkled on, like the cloning stuff and all that, but like I don't think it's gonna end up being where like Mando's joining the New Republic in some kind of giant ambush on eliminating these Imperial bases or anything like that. I do think that the child's definitely getting taken, like 100% now. If it doesn't happen,
I hope it doesn't happen, but I think it will.
I feel like that's going to be the season-ending cliffhanger. Is Gideon appears with the Darksaber to end season 1. Season 2 ends with Gideon flying off with the child. And season 3 is all going to be about taking Sebastian back.
Here's the interesting thing about that, though, is because I'm just thinking about like Endgame. We've talked about this many times, but like for this show, and like if they're going to do the Snoke thing, and if this is going to be where we're going, are we going to get at the end of this show like a real Snoke that is like fully functioning? Because presumably he's not going to be born as a child, and like I can't see them going that far, but I also don't know where else you go, because this is clearly like the intentions of Moff Gideon. This is clearly like where we're going. I can't see this being a throwaway of like, hey, this is what we're doing, but we're gonna get the child back and we're gonna ignore it after that. Like I think we got to do something here, and maybe that's not this show to do. Maybe that's the Ahsoka show. Like maybe that would be something that makes more sense to do something like that, like have with like Force users and all Sith, Jedi, whatever, all that stuff. Maybe that makes more sense. But I don't know. It's a weird, sticky situation they're entering into, and I'm so curious how they're gonna maneuver it.
I think it's interesting that we've spent at this point half of this series talking about the show being like, when are they going to do some story stuff? When's the real stuff going to happen? Now we're like, well, I don't think any of us are like, whoa, pump the brakes on this story stuff. I think it's think it's funny. Yeah, I'm ready. I feel like I've been a little more down than I should be. We've gotten stuck on this one part, but a lot of speculating.
Yeah, I mean that's all we can do is speculate because we don't have answers yet. We're gonna have to wait until to see how the season plays out. But like, I'll wait till we wrap up the episode to really give kind of a final thought on it. One thing that was interesting though is when the Doctor is talking, in his hologram, he like is talking directly to Moff Gideon, and Mando is like, "Well, this must be an old tape. Gideon's dead," and they're like, "This is from 3 days ago." It never would have occurred to me that any of them thought they killed Gideon at the end of that episode.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. But like it makes sense in like their heads because they just kind of got away and we're chill. But
right. Yeah, I never would have thought though, just because like they shot his TIE down. That
I mean, most people die in plane crashes.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just because Star Wars has trained me not to think that.
Yeah, not to think never assume anyone's dead.
Yeah. But I had never made that thought until Mando said that, and
no one's ever truly gone.
Right. So like right after this though, we get into like just a giant long action set piece of them trying to get out of this base, and it's so. The action in this episode, just like the rest of the season, has just been so good. It's just so well shot, well choreographed, and everything.
Yeah,
Carl Weathers knows how to shoot. Yeah,
this show doesn't even need to jump into the lore because I'm just like I just want to watch this every week, regardless of what is actually happening. Like it's just one of those like where it's just such good action, such good stuff like that. So
and just like last week, this episode had it too, where I kind of realized they found a way of taking away the stormtroopers are super inaccurate trope by making them super accurate, but Mando's wearing armor that they can't penetrate, so he's like invincible against it. So it's like, oh yeah. They're super accurate now, but like their shots don't really do anything because like he's constantly getting unloaded on, and it's just like he takes like a hit, like he's getting punched, but he's fine.
It's such a weird turn for Star Wars because we're so used to the just like, oh, they're running away and everyone misses and everything, and then this is just okay. They're getting them. I guess
now it's like they never miss, but
they'll still miss Cara Dune. They'll still miss Carl Weathers. Like they just can't hit those guys, but they can hit him.
But it's like Jackson said though, like when you're playing with your action figures, the one that you're controlling, like you don't ever have him die. Like he's the hero.
Yeah, of course.
So Mando's just like the head action figure in this situation. He can't get hurt or die. So like Mando's like up top doing his own thing, and then they cut back down to the hallway. He's got to get the child. Yeah, he's going to go get the child before Gideon comes back, and so like Cara Dune steals like that troop transport that's up there, and Grief Karga and the Mithril get in it, and like they take off from the spaceport or whatever. There's like this awesome chase scene where there's a bunch of scout troopers on these speeder bikes that they take out, and then these TIE fighters start chasing after them. And then just when you think they're pinned against the wall, the Mando shows up in his Razor Crest and like has these awesome like space fights with these TIE fighters to take him out. And
like, I want to get back a little fast because didn't he leave his spaceship back at the place?
Yeah, and it was funny like at the beginning of the episode too, where they're like, "Well, these repairs are going to take a while." And I was like, "Oh, well, then how long are they at this base where they're done already?"
It was very surprising.
This part though, like when he's taking these TIE fighters out with the child in the back, was like I was laughing so hard because he's like treating it like it's a roller coaster, and he's got his hands up and everything, and he's like giggling as they do stuff. And then to take out the final TIE fighter, did you guys notice what Mando did with the Razor Crest?
He spun. Yeah, is a good trick.
He spun. Yeah, spinning is a good trick. Once again, it prevails. So like, and then like he levels out or whatever, and he like turns around. He's like, "Are you okay, kid?" And then the baby spits up all of the cookies he's been eating all over him.
And then he uses his cape to clean it up.
Yeah,
disgusting.
Oh, Dad. So like, what's interesting here though? What's interesting here though is like from this point, like Mando flies off. Like he doesn't dock and hang out with Cara and Grief. So I'm wondering, is this the only episode we get them in?
I think so too.
Yeah, which you know what? Awesome. So the episode doesn't end here though. After this flies away, the two X-wings are out front, and the one X-wing pilot from chapter 2 is like interrogating Karga of like this damage report or whatever, and Grief is like, I ain't no snitch, and
Yeah.
he's not like ratting anyone out, but like they're trying to get the Razor Crest, like they're looking for him.
Yeah.
And so like, were you gonna say something, DJ?
Oh no, I was just agreeing with
Oh,
you.
okay.
Sorry.
But so like he leaves the area though, and he like comes up to Cara Dune, and he's like, well, we could use you. Like we need forces because like the core planets don't believe it yet, but something is still happening, and we need to start building troops up again. And she's like, I'm no joiner. And he's like, well, I've see her from Alderaan. Did you lose very many people? And she's like, I lost everybody. And he's like, well, I'm sorry for your loss. And I saw people online that were like, why would he ask how many people she lost as a question? And I was like, well, I mean, like if her whole family were on vacation,
The
then they all would have
planet-
gotten out. But
It's an all or nothing thing there. The planet either blew up and you were on it, and
or they
everyone
weren't.
died.
But no, that's what I'm saying though. Like it's possible
Yeah.
her family couldn't have been on Alderaan at the time. But she's like, I lost
It's
everyone.
just my issue is with it is that's just not a question I would ask a person
Yeah.
from a planet that was
Yeah.
destroyed.
Right. I mean, think
They'd
about
just be
that.
like, hey,
Or-
do you have any grieving losses you'd like to share with the class? By the way, just curious. I've just met you.
says here
yeah,
you're from New York City. Did you lose anyone in 9/11?
Yeah, that's
what that
literally
question
the question.
is.
That's literally the question. Except you know that they did. You know that they probably lost most of their family at the least. Like I did not. Like,
Yeah,
it's
kind of
fine
an-
world building for her, like to just add onto her
Yeah,
character a bit. Like I get why they did it.
kind of an
makes
outlandish
sense.
question, but
Yeah,
he's trying to recruit her very hard to join the New Republic as a trooper to help fight what's forming, aka the First Order. We're
First Order.
assuming. And she makes it seem like she's thinking about it, and he leaves like that.
He leaves a sheriff's
thing.
badge.
Yeah, that little badge with the
New
Republic
logo.
symbol on it or whatever. And it's just like, here's your out. If this is her
Yeah.
only episode too, she joins the New
joined
Republic,
them?
and we
Yeah.
never see her again. And she
Okay.
becomes
Yeah,
a clone
my-
trooper.
I'm not like a truther of like, hey, when they were filming this, they were planning to take her out, because like that's not how like the filming process works.
Right.
But she like there it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's right there, waiting for them.
I think
Or
that's what they're gonna do.
or they could use this and she could pop up in a later episode and she's like still thinking about it, and like she might die like for the New Republic or something. But like the
Yeah.
out's right there. Like it was so obvious. And then like when this scene happened, like in my head, I was just like, oh, so she is gone. So that's why the filter's been off for her.
Yeah. One thing I liked about both these scenes, the one with Karga and this one, is that they're finally, I think, making whatever like how government works in the Star Wars universe makes sense on for mainstream public. I think that people that watch Rebels and Clone Wars like kind of get it, but like the way I think so many people have like misconceptions that the Empire runs like a country or like something like that. And it's not at all like that. Like everyone has their own governments, and these are kind of like different. Like the New Republic is like basically just like just trying to take over and like kind of colonializing a little bit, and like the Empire obviously did that too, and like they're kind of like these outside forces that are like reckoning with that stuff. And this is finally, I think, for the general audience going to kind of get into that, which I like. I hope we get more into the New Republic and what they're doing here as we dive into the show a bit more, and we assume like we'll get that more in some sort of animated show or some sort of other show down the line that'll be more focused on this. Like I think that's coming, but I like that they're dropping little seeds here. This is good.
There's also, I saw like people online even during the second episode talking about how seeing these like same couple fighter pilots make the world like feel small. But I think at this point, like the area that they're in is kind of small, and the idea that like, hey, it's the New Republic, they're just getting started. Of course, there's only like one or two pilots patrolling this like area of space. Like it makes sense. Like they're in the Outer Rim. Like it's not going to be like there's not troops flying from all over to come hang out on Navarro and like the surrounding area. It makes sense, and I feel like in a sense it does make the world feel bigger because it's like, hey, yeah, we're in a small portion of this, and it's still pretty big. And so just imagine what the rest of the world is like.
Grief
Yeah.
even like
And
says that, like when
Mhm.
he's getting interrogated, he's just like, "This ain't Coruscant."
Yeah.
So
yeah,
like,
I love the Coruscant drop. Yeah.
yeah.
It honestly makes I know that like that drop is just like kind of a tidbit, like a little thing for the fans, but I'm
Mhm.
honestly just like, what if that's set up? What if we're going to Coruscant in season 3? Like, what are we doing here? Like,
He's
want
going
I
back
want
to
to
the
see
Jedi
it.
Temple.
I want to see Coruscant in a modern era so badly.
I would
Yeah,
love to too.
but-
We
Yeah.
could have in Duel of the Fates.
And we could have. We have concept art of it. It looks
Yeah.
dope. So
But just like Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, we're on the 5th ending of the episode now, where it cuts to a ship in space. That's Moff Gideon's ship.
Good looking ship.
Yeah, it's a very good
Yeah.
looking ship. You can totally tell though, it was a miniature. Like you could tell that was
Oh,
not
yeah.
a CGI ship, which is cool. Like it had like that plastic sheen to it, and I was like, that is dope. So like it goes on board or whatever, and the Mimban repairman for Grief Karga turns out is an Imperial mole, and put a tracking chip
we all saw
Not
it coming.
cool.
onto. Yeah, we all saw it coming, and put a tracking chip on the Razor Crest, so Moff is now able to track where the Mandalorian's going. And he says, and he's like in this room with a bunch of Death Star scientists, and he's like, when we find him, or he's like, does he still have the asset? And the lady is like, yep, and our spy even confirmed that he does. And he's like, perfect, we'll be ready for him. And like he's standing in this big room with like all of these like armor sets like in these slots or whatever. And another thing I don't have confirmation on, it just looks so much like them, is it looks like the Dark Troopers, which were
I
in
saw people
like
saying that.
a bunch of the old video games. Like they were in like Dark Forces and stuff. And like they're basically like if you took like a super battle droid, gave them a few more enhanced abilities, and like made their head look like a stormtrooper helmet. Like that's what the Dark Troopers are.
And they're people,
Right.
right?
Hashtag
they're
bring back
droids.
robots.
Oh, they're
Yeah,
they're
they're
okay.
definitely droids. They're just
Okay.
called Dark Troopers. But
I feel like
I
there's so
swear
many.
that's what these have to be though, and that has to be like a
Yeah.
nod to those old games, because like, which would be
It's
cool
awesome.
though, because like they first appear in a game that has Kyle Katarn. What if they bring Kyle Katarn back into the canon? That would be awesome because his character's so cool.
I think it's funny that they're called like I'm like you're like Dark Troopers. I'm like, do we not have a Dark Trooper? Like there's so many different trooper names.
Well,
I'm
there's
trying
the
to-
Death Troopers,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
but
what's your favorite trooper?
what's my
definitely
favorite
Scout
trooper?
Troopers. Scout Troopers.
Yeah, the Scout
So
Troopers
they're
are my
dumb.
favorite too.
Yeah.
I like Scout Trooper. Yeah, I like the Snow Trooper. I think it's funny their helmet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. If they didn't look like so much like clan members, I'd be with you. But
DJ.
it's true. It's true.
I've never made that connection before.
I make that every time I watch Empire. I look at that dude and I was like, "That's a Ku Klux Klan member." Yeah, right there. Just,
But yeah, that's if those turn out to be like a new version of Dark Troopers, just like inject me with it, man. Like that's a heroine for me. Like some of the Easter eggs they sprinkle into this show, they just know how to get me. But that's the end of the episode though, and it just I am so happy this season's actually getting into it instead of what we were afraid of after the second episode.
remember that episode? We
Yeah.
recorded that. That is on the internet for people to
Yeah, like,
part of horrible
I
takes.
am
They're
just so
wrong.
glad that we're wrong. I'm glad
Yeah.
that we can go back and say, wow, do we look dumb? Because I thought it was going to mimic the format of season 1 again, and that's what it was going to be. But then chapter 3 had story bits. This carried the story forward. Next week
Next week has to.
we're getting Ahsoka, guys.
Yeah.
We're getting live action Ahsoka. Can you believe it? Can you believe it's
I can.
happening?
It's
And
happening.
this is something that I thought of though, is now that
I might
Moff
cry.
Gideon, I guarantee I will cry.
I'll be close, I think, which is hard for me.
So Moff Gideon can track the Razor Crest now and find where Mandalore's going. What if next episode he tracks the Mando to wherever he's at with us, and Ahsoka and Gideon have a
lightsaber
saber
fight.
fight?
Yeah.
I can't. I'm speechless already. Just think if
I
that
think
happens.
I think they're saving that for end of season, but I totally agree with you. I think
But
it has to happen.
If this is Ahsoka's only episode of the season, it's gotta
I just
happen.
don't think it is. I don't think it is.
I know you're on
honestly.
that camp that you don't think it is, but I'm not sold that it's
Yeah.
not yet. But like, we could be seeing Darksaber Gideon versus Ahsoka next week. This time, what a way
crazy.
to celebrate the day after Thanksgiving
Exactly.
in America.
Not by buying a TV.
By watching live action Ahsoka. Oh, I can't wait! I'm just so excited.
gonna be
Maybe
good.
Rex will be there too.
Maybe Rex will be there. Maybe
Jack, I
Sabine
hope.
will be there too.
I hope.
Jackson, don't get me so excited. Don't do it
Yeah.
to me. But
Ezra and Sabine will
I don't
be
think
there
I can
too.
handle it. Ezra, Sabine, and Rex, that would be insane.
yeah.
The
So,
Rex is
would
the
you-
only one I think has a real possibility.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
definitely not in the Sabine camp
Yeah.
anymore. I think Rex is a maybe.
What'd you think of this episode though, and where do you think we're heading into next week?
I think
I think we said most of it. I think it's great.
Right.
I think I like last week's a little bit more, but that's whatever.
Yeah.
Like it was a great episode. I'm very curious where we're gonna go because I truly have no idea now, especially now that they throw the tracking bit into there. You're like, okay, and we're starting to get tidbits that like maybe the child's gonna get stolen again. So I'm like, he's not just gonna deliver it to Ahsoka, and Ahsoka's like, I know what to do with this. Like that's off the table. So I'm so curious, like how that conversation is gonna go. Like where this is gonna go. Is Moff gonna find them this episode? They do the fight, Ahsoka loses, and then he gets the child. Is that what we're
Ahsoka's
doing?
What if
dead.
Ahsoka dies? They can't bring her
wouldn't-
back
they-
just to
no.
kill her, can they?
No, that would
they
be-
can't
that
do
would be
that.
Well, it's gonna be
That would be
okay.
cruel and
Well, it's
unusual.
gonna be okay.
No, they can't do that.
They can't
No,
do
I think,
that.
no. Why would I even think that?
I think it's potentially Ahsoka's theoretically doing something important on this wherever she is, right?
I'm assuming. Like my thought is just like he's meeting her on her quest to find Ezra.
Yeah, and so
In my head, they found Ezra. Like I feel
You
like
think
that's
so?
over at this point. That's my take. I don't
don't
think
know.
they've been searching for 10 years.
I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
people online have been already speculating that the two X-wing pilots that we've seen, Filoni and the other guy, are the two X-wings that are in the Rebels prologue with Ahsoka, like escorting her. But I don't, for some reason, I don't remember X-wings
I don't
in
know
that
what you're talking about.
epilogue.
Honestly,
I'm gonna have to
so-
rewatch the Rebels finale, I guess, because like I don't remember that.
I don't know. But anyways, theoretically, Ahsoka's doing something important, and then let's say Moff shows up, and then Mando kind of unintentionally brings Moff Gideon to Ahsoka, and whatever weird Force quest she's on maybe involves something with the First Order and the creation. So like maybe Mando might accidentally be involved in setting up the First Order a little bit. It's gonna be
Now
my
here's
take.
What if
here's
Moff
something to
Gideon
add on to
sees
that.
Ahsoka and is like, "Hey, you have midichlorians. Let's just use you."
maybe because now I have a question.
Ahsoka
'cause
is
it's
Snoke.
leading into my theory. So isn't there the bit that Ezra and Thrawn are like lost
Together,
pretty much?
yeah.
Yeah, they're together.
Right? So what if this
Thrawn live
all
action?
brings it back into the the forming of the First Order? Because Thrawn's going to be in on this, like obviously, right? Like Thrawn is
Yeah.
the villain of the original books that do this. Like this is obviously where we're going. So what if that is the thing where like Ahsoka is trying to find Ezra, and then Moff Gideon figures it all out, and is like, I need my guy. Like I knew him back in the day. Like I
Yeah.
need that guy back. He needs to be a part of this. He needs to lead us through this process to get Snoke involved. I wonder if that's the direction they go in to finally bring back Thrawn. It would be crazy if like everyone's talking about like Ahsoka's gonna find Ezra, and then we just find Thrawn. And
Yeah,
it's like, okay, there it is, and that would make more sense for the show, I think.
right.
A
It
lot
would,
more sense
and
than Ezra.
that's interesting too, though, is because we don't have any canon post Return of the Jedi Thrawn yet. Like we just
Yeah,
know he's out with Ezra. all the books take place before Return of the Jedi, like all of the new
Yeah.
canon books. So
Mhm.
maybe that's why. Maybe they were saving that for this show. But
Yeah. And in theory, I think like even though he was a part of Rebels and like maybe some people think he would be carried on in the sequel,
yeah,
like I think this makes more sense just because they've talked with the show from the beginning about being the birth of the First Order.
right.
And like he's got to be there. Like that's just he's got to be there. So this would
So
make a lot of sense to me. Maybe not next episode, but
yeah.
down the line.
So when Din meets Ahsoka next week and he says, "Hey, who are these people?" She's gonna be like tripping
That's
out,
Yoda.
being like, "Master Yoda."
Yeah.
Yeah.
She'd be like, yeah, Yaddle. Like I remember her.
Yeah, Yaddle.
She was
Good
my
woman.
friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm very curious how that's gonna go. If like she's gonna have answers, or if she's gonna be like, I think it's just gonna be like, I knew one of these things. They're pretty weird.
mhm.
Yeah, I don't think she's gonna be like, yes, I know exactly what this is. I know what to do
Right.
with this. I don't know.
Mhm.
Agree with you though, DJ. Where I think I liked last week's episode more, but this one had more of like the sprinkles that I like in it. Like
Yeah.
the cloning stuff. That's like the stuff I've been waiting for them to get into for a long ever since I read the Aftermath books. I've been waiting for that moment. And
Yeah, and then you got it with
um,
Rise of Skywalker, right? You
I
got
did
it.
well,
Yeah.
I mean, now we've got the A to Z. I'm ready for the B C D E F G, all of the
Yeah.
between to connect those dots.
Yeah.
It's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So maybe by the time all of this is said and done in 20 years, I can look back on this and be like, man, they made that cloning stuff awesome.
Yeah. Aren't the sequels great?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, I still think they are good. I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm just
obviously
messing
not a
with you.
sequel hater, but I mean, there are parts of Rise of Skywalker I do not like. So, if they want to add context and make them better, 2 thumbs up for me. That works.
The finale of Mandalorian takes place in the middle of Rise of Skywalker.
I still. Do you guys think we're gonna see Luke?
No,
Not
Ever?
this season. Not this season. At
Not
most,
ever.
it's the after credits.
Yeah,
At the most.
that's true.
I can
you
see
get
some
s-
implications. Like I
I
could see
just-
them being like when they talk about the New Republic being like, I can see Ahsoka straight up being like, I have a friend who might be able to help out with this.
Yeah, I'm
Like
just so
something like
excited
that.
for next week. Not only just because we're seeing Ahsoka, but because there's literally 5 million directions just this episode could go. Just
And we don't
because
have
she's
footage
involved.
anymore.
I know
Yeah.
we have no. We're going in blind the rest of the
Nothing to go in
season.
on. Yeah.
Oh, I'm
It's good.
stoked.
Isn't everyone excited for episodes 6 and 7 to be filler episodes, just to thwart all of our fears and all our hopes? I still think there's a offhand chance that episode 6 is just complete filler. I could totally see it.
It very well could be. No,
I
that's
agree.
the episode George is going to direct, and it's not going to be.
It's about Jar Jar.
No, we have Jar Jar's place in the canon at this time.
The kids love Jar
Yeah.
Jar.
We're going back
man.
to what's their planet called again? Why am I blanking?
Naboo.
He's on Naboo as a clown.
Oh, he's in the water part, right?
Yeah. But I can't wait. Anyway, good episode though. That they're really getting into it this season, and I'm so happy. We're really getting into the nitty gritties. The nitty gritties, itty bitties. But that'll do it for this week's episode of the Cantina Conversations. You can find us on Twitter at Cantina Convo, where we are doing our various things. Make sure if when you rewatch this episode or if Cara Dune shows up again at some point this season, you boo Dune and record yourself booing it, post it to our Twitter, use the hashtag boo Dune. Just in the episode description for this, just like in all of our episodes that we've done, and we've also tweeted it recently. There's a GoFundMe link for a trans rights organization that's got like a Star Wars theme to it. So be the good side of the Star Wars fandom and donate if you can. Jackson, where can the good people find you at online?
You can always catch me at Jackson W. Wells, both on Twitter and I guess Instagram if you want. I don't do anything really anymore, so I don't post cool pictures of me like, hey, here's me with this rock. But
Just me at this concert.
I
Yeah.
love pictures
Yeah.
with Jackson and a rock.
Here's me with my 5 to 10 friends in a social gathering. So I don't know.
R.I.P. those.
If you want to look at old photos of me, I guess you could follow me there. And check out my fleets. I got fleets for days.
Oh man, sick new Twitter feature. DJ, where can they find you at? King of Hype.
You can find me at DJ_Gillard on Twitter. I'm very certain I will never post a fleet in my life, to the disappointment of many. But I'm very interested to see how that goes. I've been using it, and I'm just like, it sucks. But like, no one's putting out good content yet. We'll see how it goes.
I want to give a shout out to my favorite fleeter at Mel Felker. She's just reading her old tweets from like 2016 on fleets. It's actually really funny.
Oh, nice. That's a good use of that. But yeah, you can find me at Papa Star Wars. When this episode goes live, it's going to be the Monday of Thanksgiving week. So all of our North American friends that are listening to this have a safe, happy, and
All of
healthy.
your the United States friends. We already had Thanksgiving.
Nope. You guys are the
It was
only
a tire
Canadian
fire.
listeners of this show. Yeah, the United States listeners and viewers, though. I hope all of you have a very safe and happy Thanksgiving.
Emphasis on safe.
Emphasis on safe. Remember, no big groups.
Make sure to line up for a TV the next day, just in case.
Yeah. I mean, don't go Black Friday shopping this year. Just do everything online. I promise it'll be okay. As somebody who's made Black Friday shopping their Super Bowl every year since they were 20, I'm even sitting it out this year.
You know, Will, I gotta say that might be the quality that you would hate the most.
I just love my deals, man. I go and buy. I drop
get
like $200 on movies every Black Friday.
I get it, man. But
it's fun. It's fun. And then I end the day with like a 1 a.m. Big Mac at the 24-hour McDonald's. It's a great tradition all around.
If we ever get to a world back to normal, I want you to like live stream your Black Friday or make a video out of it.
If on
And
Black
you boot
Friday,
up like you put up like Dr. Sleep or something on your TV at 2 a.m. Just some like mid-tier movie that came out that year.
It was $5, 4K. What do you want me to do? Not buy it? Like,
I did just buy Dr. Sleep for $4 on Blu-ray. It's out in my living room right now.
Gotta get that director's cut.
It came with it.
End the show, please. End this.
Okay. What I'll do though is when we record next, whenever we record next, if we record next Friday on Black Friday for this episode, I'll make sure I have a Big Mac when we're recording. Keep the tradition alive. But anyway, that'll do it for this week. We'll just see you on the next episode. May the force be with you.